Hello and welcome to Camp, the Catholic audiobook in a month podcast. My name is William Wilson, and today is day 14 of The Little Way of Spiritual Childhood by Father Gabriel Martin. I will be reading chapter 5, which is more of section 3. This corresponds to page 53 through 58 in the paperback. We will be hearing 3 more ways to love God, the second through the fourth. The second is to strew flowers of little sacrifice. Often this is called doing little things with great love. There's the third, which is to profit from the least opportunities. And he also reminds us here about renunciation and sacrifice being a part of the little way. And then the fourth way of loving God is not to suffer only, but to rejoice. And it reminds me of St. Teresa of Avila, one of my favorite lines of hers, which is, "Lord, deliver us from sour-faced saints." Also, I wanted to give a quick word definition. So this was a word that I wasn't terribly familiar with. I'm guessing maybe there's a few of you out there that don't know it either, and that's exigency or exigencies. And it means that which is required in a particular situation. So we'll hear about the exigencies of divine love. So that which is required of divine love. All right, let's get started. 2. To strew before Jesus the flowers of little sacrifices. Saint Therese again will explain in a manner as luminous as it is pleasing. The passage is so instructive that we must cite it in full. How shall I show my love, since love is proved by deeds? Well, the little child will strew flowers. She will embalm the divine throne with their fragrance. She will sing with silvery voice the canticle of love. Yes, my beloved, it is thus my life's brief day shall be spent before thee. No other means have I of proving my love than to strew flowers, that is, to let no little sacrifice escape me, not a look, not a word, to make use of the very least actions and do them for love. I wish to suffer for love's sake, and for love's sake even to rejoice. Thus shall I strew flowers. Not one shall I find without shedding its petals for thee. And then I will sing, I will always sing, even if I must gather my roses in the very midst of thorns. And the longer and sharper the thorns, the sweeter shall be my song. As we see, nothing could be simpler than this way of conceiving the practice of holy love. It is so simple that anybody can grasp it. Even a child could understand it. And that is not surprising, since it is love put within the reach of little ones. To love is, then, to act in all things through love. It is to do all, to accept all, to suffer all, with a view to giving pleasure to the good God, because we love. Once more, what could be more simple? Nothing either more easy or more practical. Anyone, no matter whom, can do it with a good will and the help of grace. And God never refuses this grace to those who ask it. And it is always and everywhere possible, in all conditions of life and states of the soul, as well in aridities and powerlessness as in the midst of consolations. Listen to Saint Therese discovering to us the little ingenious ways of her ever-watchful love. In times of aridity, when I am incapable of praying, of practicing virtue, I seek little opportunities, mere trifles, to give pleasure to Jesus, for instance, a smile, a pleasant word when inclined to be silent and to show weariness. If I have no opportunities, I at least tell him again and again that I love him. That is not difficult, and it keeps alive the fire in my heart. Even though this fire of love might seem to me extinct, I would still throw little straws upon the embers, and I am certain it would rekindle. 3. To profit by the least opportunities and not to lose one. Ordinarily, there are only very little things that the soul can offer to the good God. Has not Saint Therese said, in speaking of herself, "I am a very little soul who has never been able to do any but very little things"? Now, precisely because love here disposes of very little things only, it does not wish to lose any of them. "I do not wish," wrote Sister Therese, "that creatures should possess a single atom of my love. I wish to give all to Jesus. All shall be for him, all. And even when I have nothing to offer him, I will give him that nothing." Truly, it is impossible to go further in self-surrender. It is all for Jesus, practiced unceasingly. It is the soul persistently given up to all the exigencies of divine love, watchful for every opportunity of overcoming self, of forgetting self in order to please God ever and always. For it is a question of letting no little sacrifice pass. Not only will the little child strew flowers, but not one shall she find without shedding its petals before Jesus through love of him. Not one. Oh, how far that goes! Only a great heart can conceive such a desire. Only a soul determined to forget self always can realize it. Those little sacrifices, taken separately, seem mere trifles. But when constantly practiced, what continual application, what universal renunciation, what generosity they imply. This is what has not been understood by some who have grasped only the fascinating side of the life of Saint Therese. They believe that the little way, so sweet and so easy does it appear under the pen of little Therese, was a means of arriving at perfection without paying the cost. But no, it is not, and cannot be so. For there is only one way to salvation, the narrow way described by Jesus. And in that way there is but one manner of advancing in the footsteps of our divine Master, which is by practicing what he has said. "If any man will come after me and be my disciple, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." This is why, if renunciation and sacrifice had not their place marked out on the way of childhood, we should be compelled to say that this way is erroneous. But the truth, on the contrary, is that abnegation there meets us at every step. What has given rise to the false impression is that love, in transforming sacrifice, has so permeated it with sweetness and invested it with so many attractions that in it the cross disappears beneath the flowers. But the cross is ever there, and those flowers have cost much in the gathering, for often have they had to be sought in the very midst of thorns, and at the price of wounds very painful to sensitive nature. True it is that no one noticed the child being wounded, because his suffering was ever accompanied by the canticle of love, and because the longer and sharper the thorns, the sweeter was his song. But is not this the height and the perfection of abnegation? Not only to suffer willingly, but to sing in the midst of suffering, and to sing all the more joyously, the more intense the suffering, and to do so every day, constantly, from morning till night, even unto death? 4. Not to suffer only, but to rejoice for love's sake. However, everything in life is not unmingled suffering. We encounter also good and lawful joys, some merely permitted, others willed by the good God. Must we then renounce them? Or, if we accept them, if we concede them, shall they remain outside of love as if they escaped its action? And shall there then be hours in life when, with the absence of sorrow, love too shall be wanting? Certainly not. A heart truly loving could not bear that. Love is consuming. It makes fuel of everything, and all serves to intensify its flame. Besides, it purposes to leave nothing in the soul or in life outside its influence. This is why, in the little way, where love plays so important a part, where it is the principal resource of the soul, everything, absolutely everything, joys as well as sorrows, can and ought to serve as nourishment for love. Thus thought and acted Saint Therese. Besides, she knew too well the heart of the good God, more tender than a mother's heart, to think that our love is not pleasing to him except when exercised in the midst of suffering. What a strange father he would be, indeed, if he were pleased only to see us suffering! But no, it is not so. Little Therese said, on the contrary, that the good God finds it very hard, owing to his great love for us, to have to leave us on earth to complete our time of trial, and that he must rejoice at seeing us smile. And so, with equal happiness, she offered to him her joys and her sorrows. She wrote, "It seems to me that if we take Jesus captive by our sacrifices, our joys enchain him too, for that it suffices not to concentrate on selfish happiness, but to offer to our spouse the little joys he scatters on our path to delight our hearts and raise them up to him." We may well believe that she attached great importance to this point of her little doctrine, for she returns to it frequently in her writings, and particularly in her poems, where she pours forth the choicest sentiments of her soul. "My griefs, my joys, my sacrifices small, behold my flowers." Let us cite also these words which seem to us to sum up best her thought. "I wish to suffer for love's sake, and for love's sake even to rejoice." In that short phrase, little Therese depicts herself fully, and with a flash of light shows to little souls the road to follow in order to live on love. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Tomorrow I will read the remainder of Chapter 5 on refinements of love. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, share, and help us grow. Also, please check out oratebooks.com, featuring the 2-volume set, The Practice of Mental Prayer by Father Momignan, one of the clearest handbooks on mental prayer we have seen. That's oratebooks.com. To learn more about us and for past episodes, please visit camp.fm. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.